Hey guys, if you want to save both time and money collecting Warhammer 40k, here are my top 5 easy tips that you can implement today to save tomorrow. And it's coming from someone who's been collecting Warhammer 40k for more than 5 years and has 11 factions under his belt, so I know a little bit about how to do it more efficiently. So if I was just starting out, here's my first tip. Focus on a specific army. With so many different factions and models available, and we have more than 24, I think, now in Warhammer, including all the supplements and all that stuff, it can be overwhelming to try to collect all of them at once, or even 2 or 3 at once. I know the feeling that you like this model and you like that model, and I can tell you enough how many people I have met who have 2 or 3 models of this faction, 5 models of that one, a few squads in this one, and not a single complete army. By focusing on a specific force, you'll be able to plan your purchases and stay on budget, because Warhammer, to be honest, can sometimes be quite expensive. It's more likely that you actually have the money to buy a discounted box set once that becomes available, if you only search for one faction at a time. Otherwise, you'll just deplete all your funds that you have dedicated to Warhammer and will lose a lot of good sales. Additionally, focusing on a specific army will prevent you from buying unnecessary models that you may never use. There's nothing more demotivating than seeing a pile of unused and finished models in the back of your desk. First, it's clutter, then it's, again, demotivating you because you actually see all that wasted potential right in front of your eyes. And lastly, you're just not playing those models. You bought them for a reason and you're not using them. That's awful. On the contrary, if you were to buy only the stuff that you really like and that you're actually planning to use, that's a totally different story. You will be getting benefits from that. From a gaming standpoint, it's also better to only learn one faction at a time, because the rules in 40k can be quite complex, as you might have noticed from other videos on this channel. Tip number 2, and I cannot stress this enough, buy used and discounted models. There are so many online marketplaces, even shops that sell models at a discounted rate. Don't just go on the Games Workshop website and buy from there. Try to find something much cheaper, and believe me, it's available. Local gaming stores is also a good place to start, because first of all, there are a lot of players there with pre-owned models, and there are also discounted boxes that the store itself wants to get rid of. eBay is also a great place to start. There are great deals there sometimes for specific faction that you're looking for. However, I must warn you, be sure to inspect the models carefully to ensure that they're in good condition. By inspecting, I mean ask questions to the seller, check out all the photos. If you don't see enough stuff in the photo, hit up the seller in the messages, ask them to provide you with a photograph. If it's a good, reputable seller, it's very likely they're going to respond and send you a photograph of what you actually want to see. Obviously, monitoring all the new incoming Games Workshop box sets is invaluable, because it's the easiest, most readily available source of really cheap miniatures. Usually when you're buying them in a box set, you're saving about 50%, maybe slightly less, on the actual price that you would pay if it was a separate box for each model. And obviously, if you have a friend who collects 40k as well, keep an eye on these boxes that contain 2 factions at once, because chances are your friend might want to start collecting, or is already collecting a faction, one of those 2, and you will only have to pay half of the price of the already discounted box, where half of the models will go to your friend, half of them will go to you, and everyone's happy, especially GW. Don't forget to talk to people in your local club about the faction you're collecting or beats you're searching for. First of all, it's a good topic for conversation. I always like to talk to people about 40k, no matter what they want to talk to me about. I'm always ready for that conversation, even during the game. And chances are they might have something that you really need, like some bits that you were looking for, or a model, and they might not even need it. Actually, I've been to my local club a couple of months ago, and a guy was just, one of the players was handing out the models that he had no use for, and I've picked up a couple of old codexes in perfect condition, and also a box of intercessors, a chaplain, and some other models, Space Marine models on the sprues, ready to go, and I didn't pay a dime for them. So if you have a good community in your local area, that's also a great way to make a cheaper entrance into the hobby. If you need to take one thing from this tip, don't just go and buy models on the GW website. That's the worst place to do that. Third tip, very important, use simple color schemes. We've already discussed that in one of my previous videos, and I cannot stress this enough again. The more complex the color scheme, the more time and money you'll spend on paint and painting the models. When you're starting out, it is okay and correct to choose the path of least resistance because you are a beginner. You don't have all the necessary tools in your toolbox, be it your skills or actual physical tools. You don't have probably anything to start with, and everything that you do is probably more difficult than for someone like me who's been doing that for a while. So you want the simplest thing, and that's okay because we're in this hobby to enjoy it, right? Not to suffer grievously. Believe me, by using a simple color scheme, you'll be able to save time and money on paint while still creating a great looking army. Because if you keep consistent, if your models are all painted in the same color scheme, they will look good just because of that. You don't have to be a great painter. You just have to literally paint within the edges of a particular part of the model, use vibrant contrasting colors, and that's it. Metallic factions like Necrons and AdMech are a good place to start because metallics are very forgiving. It's easy to apply. They're easy to apply. You can use a Relican to do half of your work for you almost always and just finish up with some details and your model is done. Anything pretty much that looks half decent right after the Relican counts as a good simple color scheme. World Eaters are also a good example from something that came out just recently. I've seen a person in the local gaming club, he painted his World Eaters in that bronze, dark, grimy color, and it looks good, even though I imagine that he didn't spend too much time on that. And also this includes factions with just one single vibrant main color, like for example Tyranids. You can have your model half done after a single application of spray paint, and after you paint the carapaces for your Tyranids, they're almost good to go. If you just add a couple of details, like in the case of Hormagund, I have here his vibrant red claws. If you just add that to him, he's gonna look awesome, and you probably spent maybe 2 minutes on that particular model. Next, my tip 4, invest in quality tools. You can't imagine how many people get it wrong. When they start a hobby, they want to save money. I understand that. It's a rather expensive hobby, maybe not as expensive as gold or something, but it can become quite expensive. And while it may be tempting to buy cheap tools to save money, investing in quality tools will actually save you the money in the long run. Cheap tools can cause damage to your models, resulting in the need to purchase new ones or to spend a whole bunch of time correcting your mistake. Invest in quality tools such as a good set of brushes, a good hobby knife will ensure that your models are handled with care and prevent those costly mistakes. You don't want to have a huge dent in the helmet of your sergeant of Space Marines because your hobby knife was blunt and you tried to get rid of that annoying piece from the sprue, but it wasn't cutting, so you had to cut deeper and you cut a groove too deep in his head. And believe me, it happens quite a lot to us hobbies. So if you really want to prevent things like that happening, use appropriate tools and use quality tools. And moreover, you're gonna save yourself loads of time on assembly if you have a sharp knife, a good drill, a quality lamp, etc. Just having a sharp knife is going to decrease the amount of time you need to actually finish assembling the model and come to the painting desk, just because each motion you make one after another is going to take slightly less time, and believe me, it accumulates. Same goes for brushes. If you have a quality brush with a nice tip, it's going to be much easier for you to fill your model with colors, even if you're not painting any crazy details. Simply applying basic colors requires a good brush as well. And by good, I don't mean something that costs $100 for a single brush. I mean something that is high quality. Paint sets are also extremely important. I would start with a set of contrast paints to make sure that you're not spending time shading and highlighting. You want to get rid of that. You want to only do the base coat and that's it. You can go for Army Painter or you can go for Citadel paints. It really doesn't matter. Army Painter is slightly cheaper, so I would recommend that for starters, but GW stuff is also great. In addition to that, you need a set of metallic paints to cover all your bases. So I would start with your basic gold, your silver, your basic iron color, maybe brass, and that's pretty much it. You don't need much more than that. And of course, you need your main color in a spray can. I would recommend personally to buy an airbrush down the road, but that's not something that you want to start with immediately. Give yourself some time to adjust and select a faction that you really want, to select the color scheme, and then proceed to buying an airbrush. Starting with a spray can is perfectly okay when you're a beginner. And if you're looking for my advice on what I would recommend and what I personally use to assemble and paint my miniatures, go into the description of the video. There is a link to my basic kit of tools that I recommend use myself, and they're also very reasonable in their price. And my last tip is planning your purchases. Before making any purchases, make a list of the models and supplies you need. Write an exact list of what you want to use and go for it. It should be, for models, a 500 points list with an expanded version to 1000 and 2000 version as your final goal. Obviously, as a beginner, it's hard for you to create a list from scratch and you might not know what you actually need, so I'd recommend to watch something on YouTube that teaches you how to play your faction. I have a lot of videos like that on my channel. If you type in how to play and your faction's name, you'll probably find it, and at the end of each video I give an example of a 2000 points list, and you can use that as your starting point. The models that you buy must be something that you like, so if you don't like something in my list, that is perfectly okay. Feel free to switch it to something else. Use Battlescribe for it. I have a guide on how to use Battlescribe, and to make sure that you're actually using the latest points and latest rules. And all that will help you avoid impulse buys and ensure that you're only purchasing what you need. Those impulse purchases is what grows your pile of shame and reduces your budget. It will make you reach the tabletop stage faster and let you roll the dice as soon as possible, and that's ultimately what we want as collectors. Planning your purchases will also allow you to take advantage of those sales and discounts, as I said before, saving you even more money in the future. This was my top 5 easy tips for Warhammer 40k collectors video. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comment section below. If you have any tips that you would like to share with the audience, I would highly appreciate it, because I may not know everything and I'm sure that there is something that I have missed. So feel free to comment, and I'll see you next time.